Hello everybody and welcome back to another one of those videos where I cover the Future of the Fortress posts by Toady1 on the Bay12 forums. If you're confused about what these are, I've done 10 of them now as of this one, and they are a little video where I read the forum posts that Tarn Adams posts on the Bay12 forums once a month talking about, well, Dwarf Fortress, obviously. I read terribly, so if you don't like that, I don't care. As always, let's get started. Before we get started with actual questions, Mr. Crabman has a essay for us about modding folders, so we shall read that and then Tarn's response and then continue with the rest of the questions. How does the idea of grouping different versions of a single mod inside of a folder sound for helping with this issue? And under the same slot in the in-game list, a list of which versions you have alongside the description stuff, maybe a random drop-down menu with a version number displayed. This would at least somewhat neaten the mod folder and in-game mod loader, so that the garbage buildup would just about be disk space rather than clutter, unless this is how it already works. Could the current/old versions be enabled through the same opt-out way of config options somewhere, even requiring editing a single text file instead of just toggling something in the menu? At least the object testing arena, because it's quite handy for object testing. Trying to update mods for new graphics functionality, or just trying to make new mods entirely for the premium version, would go somewhat slower and more painfully if there is no way to instantly test things on the premium version. And if the concern is exposing unwitting new players to an unpolished and difficult-to-use menu requiring an out-of-the-way configuration to access, would solve this. Can two different files in the mods use the same header? By header, I mean the first line in the raw file, which apparently, unlike the actual file name, determines the raw loading order, for example. And then he posts creature, creature object, creature, fox, squirrel. That's their example. Here, creature underscore other is the header, and creature underscore ocean.txt is the header, and creature underscore ocean. The question is basically, will two different simultaneously loaded mods be able to use a file name named creature underscore other.txt and have creature underscore other as the header, and each mod would have different contents in each file? Or would this cause one of the files to be ignored or overwritten? Having to be careful about naming the mod identifier itself and about naming the object identifiers, assuming you don't want to overwrite the vanilla creature dwarf, makes sense, but the file names and headers would be rather convenient to have isolated within each mod so that one can just use a readable file names and headers without worrying if someone else has used them. And Tarn's response? The disk space issue was the main issue I was thinking of, but it doesn't nest them currently. It just shows the version numbers. The mods don't function now, and I'm going to try and kludge them in since it'll take extra time to make parallel systems work in the arena mode's case. That's probably the same amount of time as doing the necessary arena mode menus. I'm pretty sure the file names can overlap between mods, and the header line there too, which should probably just be removed. And the next one comes in from Neblime, and they ask, Zach says, you're good at guitar now. And you said that you've been practicing for years. Any chance we can get a secret, or patron-only, winky face, bonus track for the release of the Steam version of something in the same style by you? As much as you disparage your improvisation from way back when, it has a mood to it, and I think people would love something in a similar style. And I hope it would be a pretty low effort project for you. And Tarn's response is, it doesn't feel low effort. Doing an actual track for the OST sitting by the other tracks would require more time and focus than I can justify. Tarn, this is me talking. I'm just going to interject here. I don't think anybody wants you to put anything on the actual OST. I think people just want to hear you play guitar. Maybe like a charity fundraiser bonus track release or something. Like, just point a camera at yourself, point a microphone at the guitar, and noodle for a little bit. We'd love to listen. On to the next one. Welcome back, Mr. Crabman. And they say, you've said before that there's going to be multiple passes of the magic update. The first one isn't going to have all of the stuff that you've planned, but will lay out the framework for it to be possible. Where do these extra passes fit into the timeline? Are they just multiple different releases one after another, and being released in pieces/passes, so that the big wait isn't quite as big? Or would they be separated by other update arcs, like starting scenarios, or economy, or boats? And Tarn's response is, dunno. Even though it's still a huge release, we're going to try and do the smallest release we can that still has large stuff we need, like the map rewrite. That'll take long enough and change enough that we'll have to see where it goes from there. The next one comes in from Bayux, and they say, is there any technical constraint or conceptual reasoning behind beverages not changing in quality in the same way as meals? Quality depends on cooking skills. I just noticed how brewers don't get to make masterwork distillations, and I wonder if alcohol quality was ever considered before as a feature. Tarn's response is, it has come up, but I don't recall what the reason was at the time. That they were used in cooking? That they were more numerous and easily divisible, so that it could be a data control thing? I can't think of a strong reason, though. Crabman returns and says, is the new palette swap system going to be used for all items and constructions, walls and floors, etc., so that colors are accurate? I heard before that constructions weren't going to be recolored because it wouldn't look great, but with the new recoloring system, that answer might have changed. And Tarn's response is, there were some early technical difficulties with floors due to edging, but that's kinda sorta handled, and constructions don't necessarily need or want edging. If you want to do, say, a mosaic floor patterns that look clean, we haven't drawn these constructions yet. The next one comes in from Useless McMiner, far from useless, and they say, will there be any changes to how evil artifacts get handled? For example, the reason why the Necromancer apocalypses are so common is because after the slab is made, the new Necromancer either doesn't do much with it before perishing, presumably, if they don't want to conquer the world or write books forever, and it gets dumped in a random hamlet or town, and it inevitably leads to death of all of the nearby civilization because any random civilized mortal person who wants to become a Necromancer can just become one by reading it with no delay. I doubt that anyone, other than goblins and maybe weirder human civs, would keep a dark slab like that around, especially if they know the potential consequences. Will this ever be changed? If it were, would this apply to, say, to artifacts made by fell moods from goblins doing murdering? It seems odd that the fell mood artifact creators seem unpunished by their civilizations as well. Is this intentional? And Tarn's response is, yeah, I imagine it'll be changed at some point, though not before the magic stuff, most likely. It is a bit odd that readers are so enthusiastic. I remember it was an intentional decision for the Fell Mood Dwarves, and I think it was a combination of it being early in development so that we couldn't easily manage whatever we might want to do with them, and of them being feared and respected because of the artifact, though we didn't think too much about it. The next question comes in from Sue, and they say, currently all overground crops can be planted year-round. Will this be changed before the big wait? Tarn's response is, it isn't a focus of any of the arcs, at least. I agree, it's weird and not ideal for the game. I'd love to see this one change, just saying. Next one comes in from Buttery Mess, and they say, as I understand it, engraved floors will now show an image of the thing engraved. How does this work for more abstract objects, such as the shapes? Does it show only the first noun? If, for example, if the description is complex, for instance, a dwarf saying a numberless goblins and a dwarf is laughing, would it render a dwarf? If the image is of a specific historical figure, how does the game dress the image? Is it based on what they're currently wearing? Is it based on their occupation? If so, does the game remember their occupation after death? Are generic dwarves naked? How does the material blend with the color palette in engraved images? What I'm thinking of is, if a particular material has a primary color of black and a secondary of green, and another material primarily of black and secondary of green, could you make an attractive checkerboard pattern of circles with the right material? Do you have any plans for constructed engravings? That was a big one. Let's see what Tarn's response is. And he says, the engraved floors don't show anything because they haven't been drawn yet. We'll have to see what happens. It might be too much to redraw all of the large creatures to fit in a 32 by 32, etc. And the image selection will work as Platinum describes from another post. Doing the entire scenes is too much to attempt, though some future date, some of the most common scenes, multiple dwarves, might be attempted. I imagine the colors will work the same way. They'll work with palletized floors once we've drawn those. If there is a way to go, that is, one color vanilla materials have one color as far as I remember. So I'm not sure what you mean about parameters and secondaries. Do you mean the ASCII background and the foreground colors? If it uses material colors, RGB, from the raws, now. I remember we have notes for engraving constructions being a possibility for this release, but we haven't gotten there yet. Next comes in from Urist McSatis, and they got a two-parter, but it's short, so we're going to do it all at once. And they say, are the starting 7 ever going to have customizable personalities and traits? 2, it's pretty annoying how once you retire a fort, half of your dwarves leave. Is there any planned fix for that? 1, it'd be reasonable, but I'm not sure when. We did the whole adventure mode personality setter, and if I remember, we were vaguely thinking of moving it over, but that wouldn't be possible until it's updated itself. And 2, I'm not sure what the context of this question is, a bug. There is various retirement bugs or migration. They all just join the migrant pool, just like other historical figures, so you can see them in the future, so that part is intended. Next comes in from The Flame 52, and they say, are there any plans to have countries that have borders? Kinda hard to draw world maps when countries are interlaced with each other. Are they countries or factions and warring groups? Come on. And Tarn's response is, the mess will likely continue, since things are supposed to be messy. Though we have a few additional notions, and than we didn't have originally, with various holdings that give it a bit more structure sometimes. Thank you very much for watching this episode, or this month's, Future of the Fortress read-along. If you'd like to read these yourselves, there's a link down below, and if you want to, see more of my stuff, there's a whole playlist of these, as well as a YouTube channel where you can watch impressions and more Dwarf Fortress than you could reasonably watch in a lifetime. I don't know why my face is here. People have just asked me to use a camera sometimes, so here I am. I'm going to disappear now, so you can listen to patrons. If you want to support this channel, my patrons are on the screen right now, and you can find the link to support this channel on Patreon down in the description. If you want to support Dwarf Fortress, even though the game's not out yet, there's also links to Tarn and Bay 12 Games' Patreon. So you should go support them there. Thank you very much for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one.